A ceasefire has been announced between Iran and Israel, but hours later, missiles were still flying and sirens were still wailing. So the question now is this really a ceasefire or just another pause before more chaos? U.S. President Donald Trump dropped the bombshell late on June 23rd, declaring what he called a complete and total ceasefire between the two countries. According to him, it was a phased agreement set to take effect over 24 hours, ending what he described as the 12-day war. He credited the deal to intense behind-the-scenes talks led by U.S. officials, with strong support from Qatar. In fact, the Emir of Qatar reportedly played a key role in convincing Iran to accept the terms, especially after Iran had fired missiles at a U.S. base inside Qatar earlier in the week. But while Trump painted this as a major diplomatic breakthrough, the situation on the ground tells a much more complicated story. Even after the announcement, Iran's skies lit up with anti-aircraft fire. In Tehran, air defenses were still active and locals reported hearing explosions. On the Israeli side, things were just as tense. The Israel Defense Forces confirmed fresh missile attacks from Iran, with one deadly strike in Beersheba that hit a residential block, killing 3 civilians and injuring 6 others. Iran's own media didn't exactly sound like they were celebrating peace either. State-run news insisted the ceasefire had been imposed on the enemy, thanks to Iran's missile strength and the unity of its people. Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Iranian operations had stopped at 4 a.m., but also warned that no formal truce existed unless Israel also stopped its attacks. That warning didn't seem to work. Later that day, Israel launched fresh airstrikes on Tehran, and evacuation orders were issued in several areas of the city. Just days earlier, the U.S. had escalated the conflict by launching attacks on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Trump claimed these strikes had obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities and hinted that this was what finally forced Iran to the table. But critics in the U.S. are now pushing back. Several Democratic lawmakers are questioning the legality of those strikes, saying Trump acted without congressional approval. And they're now calling for limits on the president's war powers. Financial markets are reacting too. Oil prices dropped quickly after the ceasefire announcement. Brent crude fell by 1.8%, landing at $67.07 per barrel, while West Texas Intermediate dropped by 2% to $67.30. This is a sharp reversal from earlier, when prices spiked due to fears of a prolonged war. So where does that leave us now? As of June 24th, neither Iran nor Israel has issued a formal, coordinated confirmation of the ceasefire. Military activity is still ongoing. Civilians in both countries are still living in fear, and observers are questioning whether this ceasefire is truly sustainable or just political theater. Is this really the end of the 12-day war, or are we seeing the calm before another storm? And how much influence did U.S. pressure and military action have on this so-called peace deal? If you find this interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, 2230.